Hello and welcome to another Diceratops Games tutorial. Today I'll be explaining how to play Stoicheion, Elemental Clash. For more in-depth explanations, please refer to the Stoicheion Rulebook linked in the description. Videos explaining strategies for each element, their inspiration, and how to play our other game projects can be found in our playlists. Stick around until the end for important game announcements, but until then, let's jump right in. Setting up. At the time of this video's recording, Stoicheion isn't yet available as a physical product. You'll have to support it on Kickstarter to see that happen, so listen for more on that later. We'll pin a comment if and when the print and play version is available. For now, you're able to play on digital tabletop platforms like Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia. Some of the setup steps won't apply there because the table is already set, but we'll go ahead and give them anyways. First, open up your game and sort through your included deck of cards. Locate these cards and place them off to the side. The 3 Leyline cards, each depicting 3 different elemental symbols. The 4 player markers, with a character on either side. The 4 reminder cards, with explanations of the turn actions and boosted turn actions. The 3 action cards, with a bright red back and a cyan or teal front. The absence marker, which will be used later for the absence elemental effect. And any additional non-gameplay cards. Shuffle the rest of the 81 elemental cards together and place them face down. This is the deck, which all players will share. Next, assemble the Leyline. Place the 3 Leyline cards in a line, with symbols arranged so that red is at the top, white is at the bottom, and blue is in the very middle, forming a rainbow of sorts, similar to the depiction on the back side of the other cards. Now, we need to decide player order. You could go by age, so that younger players lead first, or perhaps who has the closest birthday, or maybe even the last person to touch a cat. Any method will do. Just pick a starting player, or player A, and go clockwise around the table. Starting with player A, players will take turns picking out a player marker to represent themselves. These are the named cards with funky little spirits on them. Whichever one you pick won't impact gameplay. They're purely there for aesthetic purposes. As well, give everyone a reminder card to help with the turn order. Next, each player will draw a card from the deck in ABCD order. The element on that card will determine where that player starts on the Leyline. Draw your cards and then place your markers so that they point to the element matching your card. For instance, if I draw a Torrent card, which has a blue symbol, I point my marker to the blue symbol. Multiple players can occupy the same element, so be sure to share the space. After all players have drawn their starting elements and placed their markers, each player draws 8 more cards until they have 9 cards in hand. You will keep the original card you drew. Players will keep their hands face up on the table, revealed to all other players. This is important for gameplay, so make sure everyone has enough space and can see every other player's cards. Finally, place the top 4 cards of the deck face up onto the table. This is the mana pool. It's a shared resource of mystical energy that the Stoicheion spirits are made from, and that players will swap from throughout the game. Objectives and round structure. The objective of Stoicheion is to collect cards of a single element. At the end of the game, players will tally the points of cards in their hand that match their current element on the Leyline. Cards of any other color are discarded and not added to their point total. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins. A 2 or 3 player game will consist of 6 rounds. Only go for 4 rounds in a 4-player game. In each round, players will take turns going around the table, doing several actions to grab new cards and mess with other players. When every player has had a turn to go, the round ends. Stoicheion uses what is called a progressive turn order. This means that the order in which players go around will change in a certain pattern, shifting over 1 space each round. In round 1, player A has the first turn. Player B goes second, followed by C and D. In round 2, the order is shifted so that B goes first, followed by C, D, and then A. Continue this for the rest of the game and adjust your pattern depending on the number of players you have at the table. In between rounds, several things must happen. First, the mana pool is discarded and refilled with 4 new cards from the top of the deck. Discarded cards go into the discard pile, and if you ever run out of cards in the deck and need to draw more, shuffle the discard pile into the deck. After the mana pool is refilled, in ABCD order, players draw until they have 9 cards in hand. This way, players get new resources each round and don't ever run out of cards in hand. When the final round is over, players don't refill their hands. But we'll get to scoring in a bit. The anatomy of a turn. On their turn, a player may take several different actions. To show them, we have the 3 action cards. When a player starts their turn, they'll be passed the action cards. When a player uses an action with a name on the card, they'll flip that card over to show that that action has been taken this turn. When all 3 are used, they're passed to the next player so that they can use them on their turn. Players may only take each action once per round, but they can take them in any order, and can choose to forego any action and not take it. Foregoing an action does not mean you get to take another action twice, and you will not be compensated for those actions in later rounds. The first action is the mana action. For the mana action, swap a card from the mana pool with one in your hand. It's as straightforward as it sounds. Take one, place one. The elemental action. The elemental action is the main strategy feature of Stoicheion. Each element has a unique associated ability, shown in the text box on its bottom. For your elemental action, you'll discard a card from your hand and immediately use its effect. You'll notice that in the top right corner of most cards, there's an overlapping circle symbol with 2 or 3 colors. If your color on the Leyline matches one of the colors in that symbol, you can use that card's effect for your elemental action. For example, if I am a Ray elemental, the orange one, to use an ignition card, I first discard it from my hand and place it in the discard pile. Then, I do the effect of ignition, choosing a card in another player's hand and discarding it. Typically, you'll only be able to use the effects of cards of elements that are directly above or below you on the Leyline. This is considered to be your element's range. For example, Ray elementals can use Ignition, Ray, and Maelstrom cards for their elemental actions. An Ignition, Ray, and Maelstrom fall within the range of Ray. The exception to this pattern is at the very far ends of the Leyline, with Ignition and Absence. Because there's nothing above Ignition or below Absence, they can only use cards of their element or the one element that neighbors them. Finally, the shift action. For the shift action, discard a card from your hand. Move your marker on the Leyline to the element directly above or below your current position. This becomes your new element. Shifting along the Leyline allows players to access the abilities of other elemental cards, as well as pursue points from an element different from what they had started with. Just be careful that you don't end up too far away from where you want to end the game. Discarding a card to shift can also help you free up space in your hand for new cards each round. Note, because Ignition and Absence do not connect on the Leyline, you can't shift between them or through them. It's a line, not a circle. Boosted actions. On turn 4 of a 4-player game, or turns 5 and 6 of a 2 or 3-player game, players have amassed enough power from the mana pool that they unlock new abilities called the boosted actions. These improved effects increase the potency of your final turns, adding an element of uncertainty to the end portion of the game. These rounds are called the boosted rounds. The boosted mana action allows players to make an additional swap between their hand and the mana pool when they take their mana action. The boosted shift action allows players to shift up to 2 spaces on the Leyline when they take their shift action. They still only need to discard 1 card from their hand to move 1 or 2 spaces. Lastly, the boosted elemental action is a special case. To use it, you must give up either your mana action or shift action for the turn, as an additional cost to expending your elemental action. Think of it as using a 2-for-1 trade. In exchange for all of this, you may discard any card from your hand to use its elemental action, regardless of what your element is on the Leyline. This allows players to have access to the full suite of elemental abilities at the ending parts of the game. Note that you can still choose to use the base versions of each of these actions during a boosted round, moving only one space or making only one swap or using an elemental action within your normal range. Scoring. At the end of the game, after the last turn in the final round, each player discards any cards in their hand that don't belong to their current element. For instance, if I finished the game with my marker on Ignition, I will discard any cards that aren't Ignition cards from my hand. Then, I will count the points on the cards remaining in my hand and see what the total is. The player who has the most points wins. It's typically a good idea to decide which element you might want to score in by the second or third round, so that you can take the time to collect the cards in your hand that you'll be scoring with. Rules clarifications and edge cases. Finally, let's go over some additional questions you might have about the rules. If, at the start of the round, there are less cards in the deck than required to refill the mana pool and each player's hands, cards are distributed in this priority. First, the mana pool is filled. Then, player A draws up to hand size. This is followed by player B, then C, and then D. It will always be in this alphabetical order, not the turn order for the current round. You must refill your hand, and you must refill your hand before the start of each round, not during the turn. The maximum point value a player can score is 54 points. The sum of all 9 cards in a single elemental suit is 54 points. The number value shown in the top left of any card is no bearing on the card's elemental effect. A moment card with value 0 does the job exactly as well as a moment card with value 21. Multiple players can occupy the same position on the Leyline. The discard pile is always revealed to all players. You can rifle through it at will, but don't be annoying about it. Once again, Ignition and Absence do not connect for purposes of elemental actions, shift actions, or the effects of moment. And there you have it, an overview on how to play Stoicheion. Like I said at the top of the video, Stoicheion Elemental Clash does not currently have a physical release, but we plan to pursue one very soon through some form of crowdfunding campaign in 2024. If you like what you've seen, or have enjoyed playing Stoicheion thus far, please go to our website, Linktree, Discord, or other social pages to join our community and learn more about how you can support us in that goal, and maybe one day get a copy of Stoicheion for yourself. If you appreciate this video, be sure to like it. If you're still confused, check the comments. Someone might have already gotten clarification. Otherwise, you can check out our Instagram, Discord, and other socials to get help directly from developers and experienced players. If you're interested in more Diceratops content, follow the channel. It's free, and we'll release updates and helpful videos for Stoicheion and all of our other projects. As an independent game studio, we are thankful for your continued support, which makes this passion possible. Thank you.